IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning into In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. You know what it is. Tell a friend on all your social media platforms, streaming live. If you're here with us live and in living color, Facebook, YouTube, IG, get in where you fit in, good people. But we have a great show planned for y'all today. So you can be anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that. And we are, in fact, not only excited for our listeners and thankful for y'all, but also the folks that help us make this happen here at WVAI 101 Jams and our community, especially being brought to you in part by none other than your Jefferson School Foundation. And they are calling all nonprofits and established organizations. The Jefferson School Community Conference Room is now available for your meetings and events, and it's free. Plus, the Jefferson School Foundation is gearing up for Reimagine, Redefine, and Refueled for the Future, with a fresh new look coming to the Jefferson School Foundation and City Center. So stay in touch and get the latest updates by visiting jeffersonschoolfoundation.org or following us on Instagram at Jefferson_school_foundation. Don't miss out on what's next. And it's yours truly, Sir Charles, Razor, Miss Max. We're going to be right back with a jam-packed show. Today, we're going to have none other than youth activist, young lady of our homegirl, Zayana Bryant, talking about a new initiative she has supporting local teen moms. Also, we're going to be joined by none other than homeboy Harold Foley with the People's Coalition on justice and rights and all that good stuff that Harold does with the rehabilitation. Also, the Harlem Nights Gala is coming up from none other than the Minority Business Alliance of Charlottesville, their annual gala with the Harlem Nights theme this year. At the end of last Friday of September. And but we're going to kick off the show, though, with none other than Japrecia Turl. She is the owner of Wolford and Associates, and she's going to be talking, amongst other things, real estate and her presence in expanding her market and her reach to provide services in the greater Charlottesville area. Y'all don't want to miss it. Trust and believe. We'll be right back. IMHO Talk Show.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in the city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
IMHO Talk Show in the booth, in the building. One more again, Razor.
Yeah. Glad to be here.
What say you?
Hey man, this, we got certain shows that, we kind of reach back home and find people, man. They're not lost, but we just had to find them and bring them up to Charlottesville. So I'm anxious to do this interview. I'm actually proud to be part of it.
That's right. That's right. You know the old saying, it's a poor frog that don't praise his own pond.
Ain't that what grandma said? Ain't that what
grandma used to say? The grandma used to say, because while we, love being in the Ville and love repping, all the great history that's here as well. There is a greater Charlottesville area, and the thing about Charlottesville too, man, is, like you not only have the town and gown, but you have the county kids. Sometimes when you use that term county kids, that can encompass all the surrounding counties because, growing up, Charlottesville, if you're around here, Charlottesville is your city.
Yeah.
Like you go into town, usually you mean Charlottesville.
Yeah.
So that being said, we have a sister with us that some of our listeners may remember from early IMHO days. She came here to talk more about banking back then.
Absolutely, yep.
But guess what? But the sister been stacking. She started with the banking, and then she figured out how to diversify that portfolio even more. None other than Miss Japrecia Terrell. You know what? Now you a country girl, like I'm a country boy.
That's right.
Is it still Terrell? Is it Terrell?
Yeah,
You got a little
Terrell.
money.
You
like Terrell.
You like Terrell. You got a little change now.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
got you.
Yeah, Terrell, keeping it real. Japrecia Terrell. Now she is the owner of Wolford and Associates Realty. And y'all check what I said. Sister, owner.
That's right.
Realty.
Yes.
Wolford and Associates Realty. So she's here to talk about that because some folks maybe even have met her by now in the Charlottesville area because she has been reaching out, becoming more and more part of the community.
Now she got a nickname, Charles. That we call her by. We can make a family here real quick. We know it's Pre. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna go back to child nickname, but we gonna call her Pre. That's all right. Mama call her Pre. We gonna call her Pre.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. So, Japrecia, thanks for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me. Thank you.
Yes,
Good afternoon.
Family, man.
Yes, indeed. So as I said, I think some of our listening audience and folks in Charlottesville have already been getting familiar with you because you've been coming to socials, networking with folks, getting to know folks more. So let the folks know though about the foundation of your business, of being the owner and starting Wolford and Associates Realty. What does that mean to you, being a Black woman starting your realty? Tell us, just I don't even know where you're gonna start, but just tell us.
It's been a decade in the making.
Yeah.
A decade in the making. And as I was driving up here today, I was just thinking like full circle.
Yeah.
It was a decade ago when you guys had me here.
Hey.
And I believe I had just started real estate, but I just knew more about banking at the time because it was 16 years like in my head.
Yeah.
So it just felt good to just know a decade later.
What was it, Wachovia?
Yeah.
Was it Wachovia?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Wachovia, then turned Wells Fargo, and then decided to make that leap. And a decade later, here I am. It's been a journey. It has been a lot of growth. It's been a lot of failures. I think that's the part that a lot of people miss is that in order to get to where that shine happens, there's failure that's taken place. And so, I've taken some L's on the chin and I've dealt with it and I've learned the most from it to be able to navigate what works well.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time understanding the marketplace where I service. I'm licensed in Virginia. I'll go anywhere where midnight will take me.
Okay.
Wherever my car will take me, I will go. But I've also learned the territories that work in my favor. The territories I'm an expert in, but I'm not afraid of a challenge. So
let me ask you a question, all right? Because it's funny when you kind of know somebody, so you try to, maintain your professionalism. You know what I'm saying? Like Sir Charles make me do that. Please said, please. But one thing that I can always say about you, right, is that you never not help nobody.
Right.
Regardless, right? So being a business person, working in corporate America, how do you find that line to where you have to maintain, because somebody's listening that wants to do what you've done.
Absolutely.
So how do you find that line to maintain, okay, this is where business starts, this is where friendship ends, and at the end of it, we're going to try to find you what best suits you?
I think the most important thing for me, like I do, Troy, I engage immediately. If someone says that they would like to start a business, if someone comes to me and says, can you talk to me about what you do? Like, that is an addiction for me.
Okay.
I will talk forever.
Okay.
And if my family is listening, they know, because some days they just want to take my phone and they want to throw it.
Yeah.
But it is like a passion because I just can relate to, and I can still relate today, just trying to navigate how do I actually get to that place where I want to be. And if you don't have resources, how do you get there? A lot of people, unfortunately, they gatekeep.
Yeah.
And, I had certain individuals that said that they were going to hold my hand to get to the point to where I am today. And I called and I got no answer, but I'm a 3-strike you're out kind of girl. So, I had to navigate. I had to figure it out. And I don't ever want that for someone else.
Okay.
So even if I don't know the answer, most of the time I know somebody who does. I've even reached out to you, Charles, for different resources for individuals just based on your line of work. But it's just all about not gatekeeping and being able to share, which is the one of the primary reasons I started Wolford and Associates is and the credo is to make sure that you're the most decorated at what you do, and you do that by constantly staying in the know, educating yourself, not being afraid of failure, being able to tackle the challenge. And you know, something that I'm sharing with my group now is just understanding real estate is not a Monday through Friday. It's really not. In this marketplace, it's not. You do have to be able to service. If you're looking to be successful, you have to be open and willing to service everyone. And we do have a lot of blue collar jobs that are in the area, and you don't have the flexibility of being on the phone during the hours of 9 to 5,
right?
You know, and on the weekends, I try to cut it off sometimes and dedicate. But yesterday, real estate won and I lost.
Okay.
It was a lot of back and forth, but it's the nature of what you want. You go after it.
Yeah. So Pri, let me ask you this though. When so many people would have been satisfied at the level that you were at when it comes to just success, right? So, you know, looking at it from the standpoint of I have a career, I'm successful, taking care of myself and my family, all those good things. Like, tell us more about that passion and that reason for feeling like you, being Japrecia Terrell, needed to own your own real estate company.
I love chaos.
Okay.
I love chaos. And it's something about, okay, once you achieve something, it's like, what else? And honestly, this may sound corny, but it's like, what else can I do to help my community or someone else, but do it differently so people do not have to struggle with getting their hands on the source of the source. And, you know, even at this level, and I mean, I haven't mastered real estate in no way. There's always something you can learn. The market is different. Consumers are smart. They get educated day by day. And so you have to know how to navigate that. So I'm constantly open to learning something. Okay. And so I haven't mastered that, but I'm always just so hungry for something else. And this was the next challenge. I'm sorry. No, just opening up a firm. It was the challenge for me to tackle, to understand how to be a broker, how to make sure that I educate. I even had complaints about how certain agents were doing real estate after the pandemic because everything was just so quick. And I think that's what pushed me to go ahead and get it done, is because having someone teach you to do things the right way. It's not that my way is the perfect way, but at least doing things that protect you.
Right. Now, I kind of hear you teetering around representation, or like, you can tell me if I'm making that up, but did you see a need to where, you know, you being the person you are, feeling like that you can connect with customers, or like the representation that your brand gives could maybe help folks who may be scared to make a purchase, or scared to open up like their financial status to people? How much is representation, being a Black woman, you know, how much does that mean to you in this market?
It's super important, not just being a Black woman, but just being a female and opening a firm in a very small town where you had some of the OGs of the business that have been there forever. So there's still like those struggles on a day-to-day basis of how I'm doing real estate or how I'm training others to do real estate. And so you just have to spend a lot of time understanding that market. And there's so many factors that go into why I did this, so I won't bore you forever, but there's so many factors that go into it. You know, even the location was intentional about where Wolford and Associates is established. Being the community, that's the core of it, because unfortunately, the society that we live in, not everybody is educated on investment properties. Not everybody is educated on the financial literacy part of things, or even knowing how to get out of that rat race of renting, because it's becoming expensive. So at Wolford and Associates, we have a calendar that is open to the public. So you have different workshops. They're not just geared towards home buying. They're not just geared towards selling your home, but it's also, how do you save money? That has nothing to do with buying a home, but how do you save money? You know, how do you balance the energy in your home? You know, if you've had trauma that's taken place in the home, you know, we have specialists and experts that are coming in and helping with that. So it's not just centered primarily around real estate when you get down to the community part of it. And we just want to be the source of the source.
I have a question for you. Sure. When it comes to our community, you know, we know how to operate heavily with cash. So how do you keep the older generation from gatekeeping the younger generation about going out here getting a cell phone that you can't pay for, going out here getting things that mess up your credit at a young age before a house is even in the equation?
Well, one, I like to spend my money. I work too hard. Look, I'm not the expert in that area. I like to have a good time. So that's why we have experts come in for that. But I will share this with you. Just in my experience, just from banking and then what I see coming through real estate and just being in a community where society struggles in general with that generational curse, they're just afraid to spend money, period, because they never know when something else is going to happen. So they're never going to be the one to encourage you to go live your life, encourage you to take that risk and go buy an investment property. You know, they're not going to encourage you to do that. And, you know, it's okay. I think that's the balance and the fine line between having someone in your ear saying, hold up, wait a minute, think about it, and how society can just force you and push you to make quick decisions about things. I have a foundation, not to put a plug in this, and it's a baby and it's a baby and it's walking. It's called Changing the Narrative Foundation. And it's changing the way we think we have to. And so your question is one of those things, is educating that older generation on how to be more current and making those financial decisions today. Because a lot of the older generation I still have today, some of them have no idea what Zelle is.
Right.
Yeah.
So how could they kind of help me to not make a poor decision about how to handle certain things when it comes to finance? So it's trying to bridge the gap just with how we think we have to about so many things, and financial literacy is one.
Okay. What is the quickest ways? My last question. What is the quickest ways that a person that wants to get a home can invest in themselves? I know when I was a kid, they used to tell you go get a credit card at the jewelry store and develop, you know, credit like that. But I don't really know what a person should do to get something started that doesn't hinge on the verge of catastrophe if they miss a payment.
I still feel like, Troy, that is the same thing that I hear a lot of my lenders say. You would be surprised. Actually, one of the agents in the office, they actually have a client that has zero, does not have a credit score at all. And it's because he still paid cash with everything. But the surprising thing is he's not even 40. And so he was already taught pay cash with everything, and he does not have a credit score. And the one thing the lender is going to tell you, credit cards are more impactful because they're aligned. So you got to use it, pay it back, as opposed to an installment if they were to go and get a car. So a credit card is still it. You know, it's still the way to create. And traditionally, what I hear lenders say is like 6 months, you know, you begin to see that history kind of show up on that credit report.
I got a good question for you.
Yes.
But that's why you got to go to those classes that she offers, because the credit card could kill you too.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to manage it.
One payment miss on that credit card can be so impactful, and it can jeopardize everything for 12 months. You know, missing any payment on any type of loan can jeopardize you, but the credit card just carries a huge portion of the pie, even with how you spend it. You know, if you're over 50% versus being under 25% of that card usage.
All right. Now here go.
Oh gosh.
You remember what the housing market did back in the early 2000s, right? Are y'all already forecasting what could possibly happen to the housing market depending on who wins the next election?
I absolutely am not.
Okay.
And you know, even last year, first part of this year, you know, I sat on a panel and the discussion came up just about, again, us kind of going into a recession like that 2006, 7, 8 when things crashed. And that's not like, it's not the case. There were too many things put in place then that taught us something that we didn't already know. So all of those mortgage companies, government programs, it's hard to be foreclosed again. It's really hard. You don't see a lot of short sales anymore. The bank is going to do everything possible to keep you in that house. There's different insurances that are in place now with loan programs. So that way the banks aren't upside down. And that's what happened quite a bit then. And, you know, I have investors that cleaned up. They bought like 15, 20 properties during that time because they were so upside down. So the election, I mean, it's happened how many times since the early 2000s? And it's never really done anything. You know, I think now we just have a pool of buyers, consumers, everybody wanting those COVID pandemic rates again. And it's not going to happen.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, along those lines, a question I have is because again, you sound like someone that wants to be amongst the community, part of the community. You want to benefit and educate, not just sell houses.
Right.
So that being the case, as we look at inflation and things right now, I was talking to another friend of mine, Richard Johnson, who's also a realtor more in the Northern Virginia area.
Shout out to him.
Yeah, shout out. DJ Rush Hour.
AKA.
Yeah. And one of the things we were talking about is when people were kind of comparing inflation and greed, because what we're experiencing right now is that some of it is corporate greed and some of it is like economic inflation. But the point I'm getting at though is that where something he educated me on, which is kind of obvious now that he said it, but like when you look at the housing market, and the example he gave me was you take two houses, same neighborhood. That's for simplicity reasons. Let's say both 100,000. All right. If one has a bidding war and sells for 200,000, now that whole neighborhood is worth 200,000. So my question to you is like how do you sometimes balance that? Because me as like a bleeding heart liberal progressive kind of thinker, I'm like, well, we need to regulate that mug, put a cap on it. Be like, your houses in this neighborhood is worth this. You cannot sell over it, but that hurts the free market.
It does.
So I'm just curious your thought process around that when people say it's too expensive to live. We can't afford it. Houses are out of control. Yeah, like, so your thoughts about that?
I mean, it's very expensive to live. When I think about if any of my children decide that they want to purchase or rent or anything, just in certain markets alone, I'm like, how on earth are they going to afford it? Because then when you look at what the pay scales are of some of those jobs, the math doesn't math. It's not mathing. And so, you know, Charles, to your point and that scenario that Richard brought up, it actually happens. Just a couple months ago, I sold a property. It was listed for like $869, and the listing agent and we had several interactions and conversations about the list price, even when they purchased it, because it was a new build. It was the model home. And, you know, this house was overpriced. Like, it was never, ever going to sell at that price. And I think in those situations right there, it depends on who comes along. It does not constitute that every house in the neighborhood is going to sell for that price. Some people are going to want to. And the agent reached out to me and said, I just got a phone call and somebody wants to sell their house around the same price. It's hard. I think, again, it's the marketplace and where you are, whether or not you're able to pull that off. But sometimes it comes down to the circumstance. And it is hard to make that decision because you're being enlisted to represent a seller who wants to get top dollar. Or do you say, hey, I'm not your girl, and walk away and you miss a paycheck? You know, so for me, I am very transparent. Even this morning, I had a listing appointment this morning on a commercial space. I'm very transparent with all of my sellers. You know, I have room for pushback. You know, I'm going to do my homework, offer you some prices. I have room for pushback. But if it's something unrealistic, I'm fine with saying I'm not your girl, because at the end of the day, it jeopardizes who you are, because it's just sitting. But a seller doesn't understand, and sometimes they got to learn that on their own. And I don't think I've seen where a community has kind of widespread, like, okay, you started, now I'm going to do that. But I mean, it can happen in like smaller increments, you know, but again, it's based on who's buying it and the direction it can go.
Now, is that, and this education for me, is that more of what causes like like housing market crashes, or is it more like the banks having an issue that causes the crash, or is it more just you bought something and now you're underwater with it and you can't sell it for what you paid?
It's the risk you choose to take as that purchaser, right? Because again, my client who purchased this property that was priced higher than everyone else, she's had her eye on that property for 2 years. And typically one is not going to overpay for a property unless it's a sought after community. Values are always there. You're never losing value. It's always going up. So people are willing to pay over. It's just when it comes to the bank is not willing to lend you more than what it will appraise for. And so you have to be that very disciplined buyer. Like, how much cash have you been putting away to be competitive, and say, you know what, bank, you can give me this 80% on it. I'm going to take care of the rest. And so that can happen.
In today's market, what is more valuable, land or the house?
The house.
That's crazy.
And I kind of hesitate to that, because I'm a true believer it's all in the market. You know, you could buy some land in Orange County. No shade, Orange County.
I hope not.
But you could buy some land in Orange County, and it could take 10 years before it ever is worth anything, where someone can come along and make it valuable. But you can buy that same square feet in Arlington, and it's a treasure. immediately. It's not 10 years of waiting. Okay. So it depends. I mean, I've had clients like along Route 3, you know, when they have some of those data centers and the talk of Amazon and everything like that. Yeah. So those that kind of purchased along Route 3 years ago, like they're anxiously waiting, like what's going to happen next.
We have a house on Route 3, right?
There you go.
We get bombarded with, do you want to sell? Do you want to sell? Okay.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think you should always explore, where am I with it? You know, where's the value at for you? But I definitely feel like, just depending on what that financial goal looks like, it's going to be the home.
Yeah. So we are joined by none other than Japrecia Terrell, owner of Wolford and Associates Realty. And we have a comment online, y'all, that says she's an okay agent. Psych, best in the business. And y'all can guess who that's from. That's from none other than Cocoa Butter himself.
Oh, Aaron
No, Shea Butter. I'm sorry.
Shea Butter. Yo.
Yeah. Aaron, what's
get
up?
The money.
Queens get the money. Aaron approves loans. Y'all check him out as well. Because Aaron was a commentator, co-host on here as well. So he's always giving some financial tips, whether it was real estate or whether it was just like financial advice. So
MLS 23-17-5.
Yeah. But thanks for listening to Aaron. So I know y'all do business together as well. Right?
This decade, I don't know if I would be where I am today if he had not put up with me so much.
That's what's up.
He has been very impactful in my career.
Good brother.
He answers the phone when I call, and if he doesn't answer, I keep calling. And then I'll say, "What's wrong with you? Why didn't you answer my call?" So we have been connected to the hip. He has taught me a lot. He's even the one, I don't know if you guys know this or not, when I was at Wells Fargo, Wachovia turned Wells Fargo, Aaron was on the other side, and he is who I went to first to ask about.
I remember.
I want to switch. I want to do something else. He had said then, I think you'd be best suited as a realtor. And I'm like, no, I'm not listening to you. So that's when I got into lending. But I think God had a different plan for that, though, because he wanted me to go into lending to have the foundation of the understanding of what you need to move around in this business. And it was truly I became an exceptional agent because I understood the lending process. So that was God's plan. But then I went to Aaron and said, okay, I'm ready to be a realtor now. And he's been wonderful.
This question goes great with what you just said. 1 second, Charles. If you can think about this, if you can think about this, what measures can be put in place for a person that purchases a house like that wants to transfer it to their children later on?
Definitely work with the title company, the title agency, attorneys. So that way you can make sure those things are in place. I spend a lot of time with families where those things are not put in place, whether it's for their children or they have extended family. And I spend a lot of time trying to educate people in the aftermath. And so if you want to know what you can do today, be proactive. Just go to a title agent, go to an attorney and say, hey, how do I do this? So that way it's set up the proper way. And it's not about having the home paid off. It's about making sure that you still have that plan in place, because your children may decide they want to move forward with that house. But again, whether it's 2 siblings arguing over it, whether it's 10 family members tied to one property, it can be a nightmare and it's emotional.
Yeah. So, and Aaron did have a question for you as well. Or comment. He wants you to talk to the folks about the importance of just getting into real estate, because so many people miss an appreciation and value by simply not executing or being prepared.
By way of just purchasing real estate, I'm assuming that's what he's speaking of.
Yeah, Aaron, if you still listening, you may have to clarify that. But yeah, he was talking about the importance of getting in. So it sounds like the buyer, you said, people missing appreciation and value.
Yes, absolutely.
Simply not executing.
I think that's a good point. Yeah. I always say you just need to start that pre-plan. That pre-plan is so important. A lot of consumers feel like they have the plan of when they think they're going to be ready, and you miss opportunities. And Aaron and I actually spoke of this a couple of weeks ago, just with some missed opportunities with investment properties for myself, just overlooking and feeling like, no, I shouldn't do it. I've always had this fear of, with my children in college, like, okay, I need to make sure I always take care, of that. And, you can miss opportunities. Because if you can it's all about creating an additional stream of income. And that's where real estate can be very valuable. And even if it's your first home, you just got to ask the professional the question, not the family friend, not an aunt or uncle. You want to ask them, the professional, someone who is currently in the business, because their experience 5 years ago doesn't match today, or their experience with real estate 20 years ago, it's not the same thing today.
It's good you said that, because with all the outlying information that you mentioned as far as preparing people and educating people, do you feel that real estate is still like the number one investment to have?
Absolutely.
Because I think it used to be a time where people would say just buy. If you buy something, you can't go wrong. But do you feel now that you need to be more prepared nowadays? You need to be educated on money management more so?
I think you have to be mentally prepared.
Okay.
Because when it comes to the money management part, and Aaron knows because he's online, we've had clients who have purchased homes and they have $1,000 in their account. So it's not about you having to
Where's their credit though?
They may have the credit that they need, or they may not. It's if you're willing to accept that pre-plan that's put in place as far as preparing. There's just this perception, this stigma still, where you have to have a 700 credit score and you have to have 5% or 10%. You can. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you are trying to find out where you are, engage yourself, you just have to reach out to that professional. And real estate is what moves the world. I mean, it's just huge. I mean, it's one thing that we can't live without. And so it's what kind of keeps the economy going. When it's bad, it's bad. I will say that. But when it's good, it's good. It's what makes things happen.
Now, saying that, and people are always talking about affordable housing, right? That's sort of a buzz term, a catchphrase. So when is it okay to rent? Because I got to imagine that housing in general, one size doesn't fit all.
And that's so true. I don't know how in depth everybody kind of stays with it, but renting does work for certain circumstances, certain individuals. Because when you own a home, I don't know if everybody has read or maybe come across Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And then I actually looked at something last week. Steve Jobs had even talked about just when you own a home as like your actual home, it's not truly an asset when you're paying that mortgage. But when you have 5 rental properties, it's a stream of income and it's not your money. Look at what you've created there. And so it really just depends on what the plan is, because what I'm sharing with you may not be the fit for everyone based on what your end game is.
Right.
So I think once you discover, okay, I need to create another stream of income, we got to make sure we buy the right property for you. Because if you're going to rent this property out, we got to make sure none of the money is coming out of your pocket. But then if you are living in an area where the cost is so expensive and you can actually dump your money someplace else to make you money, then maybe you do rent.
Okay.
What do you feel about land trusts?
It's an iffy thing. And, I had my first experience with land trusts here in Charlottesville when it comes to affordable housing. I had a client call me and say, oh my God, Japrecia, look how much these houses are. And so when I did my digging on it, there's pros and cons to it, because with the way that is set up to create affordable housing, you don't actually own the land itself. And if you create too much equity, or if the turnaround time on it is so quick to where you have equity in it, if you read the fine print, you do have to make sure the bank is not basically coming for part of that equity if you're ready to sell.
Okay.
So you do. And Charlottesville was my first experience. If I could think of the community where it was, I'd share it. But it was in a land trust. And, you had properties that were wonderful price points. And again, the concept is affordable housing. I do wish more places would explore that. At the end of the day, it's a way to get people in at affordable mortgage. You do own something. And 9 times out of 10, someone's not making that much equity and turn around trying to sell it within that first 2 years. And that's the thing about it.
So when it comes to the term affordable housing, this is where all three of y'all can help me. Is affordable housing to what I'm purchasing or where I'm renting? Because they just don't seem like the same thing to me.
But they can be. I mean, I feel like every marketplace that I can think of, kind of neighboring Charlottesville, Culpeper, I wouldn't so much say Northern Virginia, and I am throwing shade against Northern Virginia because it's so expensive, but affordable housing is on both ends. Like new construction in Culpeper, 2-story townhouse, less than 2,000 square feet, you're already paying like $340. And so when you look at rates, again, it goes back to the jobs. If someone that lives in Culpeper is working a job in Culpeper, that is a ridiculous amount of money to actually pay. And your job isn't paying you the pay scale that you should have. So you do have to have some discipline, or you have to take advantage of some of the products and programs that Aaron or any of the other lenders would offer that are designed for rural markets. So that way it can help you with closing costs. It can help you with down payments. There's even programs, and I have kind of gate kept this because another agent shared it with me. You do have those programs out there where they can create it based on what you can afford, and you can still own the house. And when it comes to rent, I hate to say this because all of my realtor colleagues will probably hate me for saying this, but I try to make sure that if I am interacting with a client that has a rental property, that we're making it make sense, because it is hard to even rent anymore. That's the affordable part, because the calculation is like 3 times the rent amount. Like if someone is making that much money, and then some days I see where they want you to have a 650 or 700 credit score. If all of that is in place, go buy a house. If you have to have that much to qualify just to rent, go buy a house. And so that's where the agents at Wolford are finding out. Let me ask the question, have they explored purchasing yet? And they say no. 2 of the agents in the office just acquired 3 clients just by asking that question. And they were taking them to go look at a rental that was like over $2,000 a month.
And I know a lot of it is like people see this astronomical figure when it comes to some of the house prices, but I can't help but think that a lot of times it's our perception, right? It's just like when you go to buy a car, like people can sort of digest the price of a car more, but it's still the same idea, right? Of like, you gotta not just look at the total price, because you're not coming out of pocket with that all right now. It's like you're gonna figure out what your budget is, and then how many years your term needs to be, right? But now, don't get me, I understand that like there's still some houses that's gonna be out of your budget, but I just wanted to know what you would share with people who may look at the housing prices, but they may in fact be able to budget to get, you may pay on it longer. But I'm curious on those conversations that you may have with folks
you gotta live somewhere
to kind of get that what do they call it, like the sticker fear, or like the
sticker shock.
Sticker shock.
And I think a lot of counties are experiencing that right now. Like in this footprint, they are experiencing like the sticker shock. Like I just mentioned, a 2-story townhouse is $340. And so I can remember
that's new, stick built.
It's new, but it's still the square footage is still, very little. It's not a lot of square footage there for that price point. So there is a lot of sticker shock. Some days when I'm just kind of riding through the footprint, I'm like, wow, this is what it's like to live in an expensive area almost. When you think about how do you move around in Northern Virginia, DC, or Maryland, like you have to have jobs that pay you enough to be able to accommodate that lifestyle. And even if you're just keeping it simple, you're not even partying every weekend, you're not at every event that's happening, just the basic stuff. And I feel like that is the direction that we definitely are headed. So I'm team find jobs that are paying us more, jobs start paying us more, because the growth of the houses and the cost of it is far surpassing the jobs and what they're paying.
Are you team new building, or team finding something that's already established?
I'm team finding what's going to work. I'm not really a new or existing, because a client comes different too. I have some clients that are only new construction, and they understand that like I can show them a very pristine, clean house that is already existing. No, they're just team new. So I'm about what works. Like right now there's townhouses that are 3 stories with a garage, 2,500 square feet, and those are priced $340 as well. So you tell me, which one would you choose? That new construction with only 2 stories, less than 2,000 square feet, or would you go with that 3-story?
My knee's getting bad. I'm picking something without steps.
Exactly, right there.
And Max and Razor did bring up like the trust earlier too. Talk about the advice that you would give when it comes to families who have inherited homes and properties the best way to continue with that, because what I see a lot of times is that like there's sort of two facets, right? Like if you're in an area like Charlottesville, or I imagine some areas in Northern Virginia, the taxes are just so outrageous. So maybe the people that inherited, or even like some folks who may have paid it off but now still can't afford the taxes, they got to make a decision on whether do I hold on to this while it builds value somehow and figure out how to pay this. The other piece is when it's left the right process, because I feel like particularly Black folk, we leave one thing to a bunch of people. And that normally causes issues. That normally causes issues. So it's like, so those two things, one, like what you do with the inheritance that you maybe can't afford, and how you actually should leave that property.
So it kind of goes back to what you had asked me earlier, just like what can you do to be proactive? That's the thing. What can you do to be proactive? Again, it's the same response. Getting with someone now. And even if mom and dad or whoever are still living, we want them here on earth with us forever. But it's having that hard conversation. It's uncomfortable, but having that hard conversation, because I promise you, in the aftermath, it's 10 times harder. Right now, I have 2 siblings that are in court because one wants to keep the property and the other one does not. So now an injunction is being filed. I have a family of 6 that own a property. They're all spread out. They all inherited it. I've had properties where sisters and brothers come from out of the woodwork that they didn't even know dad or mom had, and now they want a piece of the pie. And the best thing you can do is just go either set up that will or find out. I had a young lady call me last week. She actually owns a property from a previous marriage. She's now married, and her now husband have had that very open conversation. She wants to be able to continue to have him in the house, so he has lifetime rights to the property. He does not own the property upon her passing. Her children will. Okay. And that's different. And you want to protect it, because if she leaves this earth and he remarries, in Virginia, it's a common law state. So now guess what? Their stepfather and his new wife own that property, not her children. So she is being proactive, and I connected her with the title agent so that way they can put that in actual writing, so they don't have to argue over it. And I think, to go back to part of your question too, Charles, when do you decide if that loved one has passed on and the family has also had this house in the family now for 10 years, who gets to rent it? Who gets to stay there? Who gets to do the maintenance? Who's paying the taxes? Who's paying the insurance? You can't leave a house empty, because that makes the insurance double when they're vacant, whether you know that or not. And, I've had some of this experience with my own family, just kind of seeing both sides of it. It's emotional. You want to keep the property forever. But I also feel like you have to look at the cost that's going into it. What is the plan? And one of the generational cycles of things is that we want to keep this house forever, and they would have wanted it. And this is not about me having a home to sell at all. It's about what makes sense. Is there one person paying the taxes, one person doing the maintenance, and the person in the house is not even paying rent, not even paying anything, like even into a family account for the family. So you got to look at those things and kind of see who's doing what, and then you make those decisions.
Before we let you go, is there any area that's cheaper in like our Charlottesville area, Louisa, Culpeper, Madison, when it comes to purchasing homes, or is just everything crazy right now?
I think every locality is experiencing some level of, this is more than what I used to pay. Just because of rates and just because of the cost of building since the pandemic went up. But if you want to know which county is cheaper than Culpeper, which county is cheaper than Charlottesville, who's cheaper, Orange or Louisa, that's really how you have to look at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bro, I reached out to last year. There was an auction in Madison County on this country road for like a 1 level. It was like 2 bedroom, like 1 bath. I was like, Bree, is this serious? Like, they asking this much a starting bid on an auction? And when I saw that, I was like, man, the game is messed up right now. Like, I thought I was gonna come in, on the low.
I thought you were
on the auction.
Now, you did talk about all the controversy of everybody owning a home. Is it smart for, let's say, if me and Charles was to go in together to purchase a home?
It can be. I think that's something that you guys have to be on the same page behind the scenes. Like, what is it going to look like? You know, what does your team look like of individuals that's going to take care of like routine maintenance? Are you flipping it? Are you holding on to it in its rental income? That is one of the things that factor in too when you talk about investment properties. Do you want it to hold? Or are you looking to sell? Because the cost is going to look a little bit different too.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, not opposed against that at all. I just think you always have to be on the same page.
Okay.
Yep.
Good stuff.
Yes, indeed. We have been talking with none other than the owner of Wolford and Associates Realty, Japrecia Terrell. Man, that feels good to say.
Country girl.
Boss lady.
From back home.
Yep,
From back home.
right.
Yep.
But Pre, before we let you go, the last thing I have for you is like, you know, you're expanding your reach. You come into a new market. For the folks that may be listening that's already in this market, right? Who may be feeling the type of way. Let's keep it 100.
Yes.
Like, what is that sort of relationship building like when you have to come when you're coming into a new market that may already be established realtors? What would be the lasting words you would want to leave with the listeners when it comes to what to expect by seeing your brand in Charlottesville more?
The same thing that I said, just trying to be community focused, giving to the community. So what can Wolford offer to you as a community? You know, because it's a new look for a real estate company to focus on the community. So yes, I am looking to spread my wings. I told you I live off of that chaos of what else can I do to help someone. And so Culpeper is not the only stop for Wolford and Associates Realty. And the agents there don't just cover Culpeper. I've never just covered Culpeper. I've driven wherever midnight takes me, and you know, they kind of are spread out in certain territories that they love. So I am hoping that in God's plan, you're going to see more of me in the Charlottesville market. You know, I've been spending some time up here just understanding the lay of the land. I worked here years ago. And so just coming back and kind of revisiting some of those places and seeing what Wolford would be able to bring. I think most importantly, you know, stepping into a territory I'm unfamiliar with, you know, it's going to look different, and I got to be prepared for what that pushback has been. I think that's been what my career has been the entire decade that I've been a realtor, is that pushback, as well as that Northern Virginia market too.
Okay. Nice. Well, best of luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And you know, we always accepting underwriters.
Hey,
I'm just saying.
I'm trying to find one of those myself. I want to
Hey, Charles, Queens, get to the money.
Hey, Aaron, Queens, get the money.
Queens, get the money.
All right, pretty much continued success, and we'll
Thank
hope
you
to
guys
talk to
so
you again
much.
soon.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that, and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue, especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay aligned with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
IMHO Talk Show. Just wanted to come in real quick at the top of this hour with a special announcement.
Yes. On this day, a few days ago, a wonderful lady was born by the name of Miss Maxilia Robinson.
Miss Max.
For those of y'all know about in Greene County, Maxilia Strother.
Hey.
So we want to tell you happy birthday. We love you. We appreciate you. And you know you wasn't going to get up out this without us saying, Charles, hit me one time on the keyboard with something from who you want, Sexy Red? Yes.
Happy B-Day, Miss Max. Get him, Maxilia.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue, especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay aligned with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Back like we never left, live and in living color. IMHO Talk Show.
That's right.
Tell a friend, because you could be anywhere in the world, but you should be here with us because we are edutaining Miss Max per usual.
That's it.
And who better to edutain with than papers? I'm sorry, Quentin Harrell. Quentin Harrell, because he went corporate on us. That's my man. What's up, Q? How you doing, brother?
What's happening? What's happening? Still papers.
All right. All right.
Papers.
I don't forget where you came from.
Papers LLC now.
Hey,
Papers Escort.
Big talk. Big talk. We love it. We love it.
Be here. Good to be here.
Yes, Nate. That's exactly why why we're so delighted and excited to have you here, because definitely been about the business and the great thing about you, which you can go in. Matter of fact, let's start there before we even dig in to how you help other businesses right around the area. For the folks who may not know, let them know all the brands that you can find that House of Harrell signature under. Let the folks know what Quentin Harrell and the missus have been up to.
Oh man,
I put you on the spot. That's right.
Yeah, you did. So first and foremost on my end, I'll start with the nonprofit end because that's the most important work. We co-founded New Hill Development Corporation.
That's right.
A few years ago, and got big things that's building and growing, and that which is supporting, and our people know about New Hill. You know what I mean? We got partners right here in the building. Yeah, you do. Yeah. So New Hill, so that's the nonprofit side, and my wife really carries the torch on that and has been doing great things as far as leadership and building team, and a tough build when you're trying to build wealth in the community and bring all your peoples along. Yeah, that's not easy, but it's worthy. You dig? And so on the for-profit side of House Harrell, I've established Heritage United Builders, which is a construction brokerage company that seeks to connect minority subcontractors to construction work. And we just recently acquired a barbecue sauce business that's been in existence for about 14 years. It's called Bone Doctors Barbecue. We're looking at possibly doing a brand refresh, but we just look at it as an asset that we're trying to bring on the household rail and build it and grow it to something even bigger than the previous owners did. And so, our whole thing is about wealth building and building wealth in the Black community, building wealth in the Black family. And if we're going to push that and talk that, then we're going to need to walk that.
That's right.
So that's
right.
That's about what we're doing. Doing a little real estate, but there's no,
I got you.
Yeah, we'll leave it right there.
I mean, that's what's up. We are joined with none other than Quentin Harrell, and and as I said, you handle your business, but then also with I think so many people appreciate about you, and so many people who have been under your mentorship, is that you give back, and you are always educating, providing opportunity. And one of the ways is that you've been a part of the Charlottesville Regional Chamber of Commerce's Minority Business Alliance for quite some time now. So for those who may be new to the area, or maybe business owners who may not know what the MBA is exactly, let's start right there. Let folks know your position with Minority Business Alliance of Charlottesville and what services it provides.
Yeah, something he said important that for quite some time. I need to be getting out of the way. But on the serious side, I serve as the chairman for the Minority Business Alliance. It's been an honorable serving that I've done thus far. I serve with Kay Monroe, who serves as our vice chair, aka Mother Sister.
That's right.
And Alex Erpy of Emergent Finances. He serves as our treasurer. And I'll say the Minority Business Alliance's mission is to connect, convene, and promote minority business professionals in Charlottesville, connecting and leveraging the partnerships with for-profit and nonprofit relationships in the Charlottesville area, just to expand community wealth building. And so what's coming up is an event where it's our our headlining event on convening the minority business community with all our partners to do some celebrations. That's one of the things I'm here to talk about.
All right, well, let's get to it. None other than Harlem Nights. NBA presents Harlem Nights Black Tie Gala, going down Friday, September 27th from 7 to 11 at the DoubleTree. So Q, like I'm not gonna steal your thunder. So Harlem Nights, tell us about the theme, tell us about the purpose of the night. Let's start right there.
Well, this years ago, the Minority Business Alliance used to always do a luncheon, and those were big. But we decided several years ago that we would start doing an evening event and give people an opportunity to really get dipped.
Okay.
And so for the 10th year anniversary, we just did a black and white event. And that went well, and everybody enjoyed themselves, and we really like to get it lit in there too. So a lot of bringing business people together that's usually want to be tight, and we try to get them loose. So we've done a great job of bringing the community together to celebrate minority businesses and the minority business community. And so this year we wanted to do another theme. And so what appropriate theme could you think of other than Harlem Nights?
Big facts.
When you think about the brothers in the suits,
black
getting their G on, getting their money up, doing things, navigating the challenges of our community, to make things happen. And so we just thought that would be a great theme for us to really get dressed up, because we love getting dressed up. I know I love getting dressed up every now and then, and it is we just see the Harlem Nights theme as a way for everybody to get dressed up, have fun, and have a little something extra to think about as we all convene and celebrate one another.
Good stuff. The Harlem Nights, once again, September 27th at 7 o'clock at the DoubleTree. Now, one other big thing that you always do at these events too is present awards. to some of the local business owners. Tell us a little bit about that, about, like what that award represents. And you probably can't tell us who's winning yet, but but tell us what you can about this annual award. It's the John F. Bell Senior Vanguard Award, correct?
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. That's like a nice alley-oop right there.
Yeah.
That dude, he a hooper right there.
I mean, I do mean.
Yeah, Chuck, man. Chuck, point guard. But yeah, thanks, Chuck. So what's very exciting about this event is we get to celebrate, as I mentioned, the minority business community. But we do two things. We have the one that's most historical is the Vanguard Award, where we choose someone from the community where we don't choose. People send in their votes for an outstanding business community member who supports the minority business community, an outstanding individual that's all about diversity, that's all about supporting, and it's all about building wealth in the Black community and in the minority business community. And so we're going to be celebrating that particular person for that Vanguard Award. And it's that award, I think you mentioned what is in the namesake of Mr. Bell, right? Our funeral home that we know, love, and honor in this community, the Bell family. And so in addition to that award, we'll also be recognizing awardees of Minority Business Grant that we partnered with the United Way of Charlottesville, United Way of Greater Charlottesville. We've been doing that for several years, and it's been a strong partnership where we get the opportunity to give some minority businesses some money. Okay. And it's a grant, so it's not a loan. So it's a grant, and we all know that grants can be much better than loans.
Yeah, absolutely.
Early on, because you don't have to pay it back.
You gotta give it back.
Yeah. So that partnership with the United Way has been fantastic, and we look to recognize some of those members who will be winning that award and hopefully joining the Minority Business Alliance as well.
Okay. That's what's up. That's dope. That's dope. Speaking of joining, like any partners you wanna shout out? Like, who helped put this thing together? The gala and stuff, man. Like, because you up here trying to take all the credit, man. Come on, you can't do this by yourself.
Yo, I actually didn't even want to be up here.
Hey, what happened to your alley-oop?
Yeah, he just hacked me on the elbow going through the lane right there. Yeah, but shout out to the chamber first and foremost, and to Andrea Copeland. She's the glue. So Kay Monroe is mother's sister. Alex Erpy is on point, Alex. And then Andrea is the glue, and she keeps it all together. She's the COO of the chamber, and she has really been instrumental in putting and helping us organize the gala. But we also want to give shout outs to our other partners in the community, like BPN. BPN is one of our strong partners in this community. We are inspired by the work that Charlottesville Black Excellence is doing in the community. All this celebration of our Black thought and Black excellence, it's important. And I really feel like we're creating a critical mass of what minority businesses and what Black people can do in this community to create wealth.
I love that.
And so I may have missed someone that has organized and helped organizing in this event, but there's so many things that we're doing in this community that I love, and to see young minority business owners wanting to get more active. And because that's one of the things I really, really push is get active and volunteer while you're building your business, because you'll be surprised on how the wealth can come and the opportunities can come to you in your business when you're giving of your time, talent, and treasure. That's right.
That's a beautiful thing. And that's actually kind of the last thing I had is, you mentioned the wealth building a couple of times. And I think that's so important, Q, because like when you're doing something new and something different, like change is hard, right? Change is hard. And and just speaking bluntly, it's like a lot of times here, like being the area that we're in, like sometimes we get lost in the minutia a little bit of who's doing something and who's not doing something. So I'm just curious on some of your techniques, maybe like a last word you could leave with folks when it comes to when they watching these moves, like all those groups you just mentioned, right? And somebody may feel like, for whatever reason, even if it's unfounded, that they're on the outside of the aforementioned groups. Like, what word would you leave with them on how we can work together and realize that if the right one of us makes it, that opens the door for more of us?
The first word to come to my mind is solidarity. Unity. I mean, those words, well, we hear unity more, but those words mean so much more to me. Like I went to college as an adult. I'm a 2-time college dropout as a youth. I went back to school as an adult since I've been in Charlottesville. And one of the things I learned, we did all of our projects as teams. And what I learned while doing all those projects while getting my bachelor's degree in business is how much more you can get done when you're working with a team. And so when I think about the Black community, the biggest component that we have to do, and I'm just trying to do all I can to live it out as opposed to just saying it and telling people what they should do, is operating with a team mind, like different organizations that's doing different things, but I see that it benefits our community. That's my teammate. I want to see them win.
Big talk. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I don't look at competition the same way, because that's how we end up losing, because we look at each other as competitors, where we're actually should be on the same team, especially if we stop and really think about what we want for ourselves, what we want for our family, and what we want for our own community. If we look at it, it's just like going through a strategic planning session. And when everybody's focused, everybody agree on the same things. All right, let's ride. We might be in disagreement of some things and how the way we do it, but that's why there's different lanes to do it. But we got to always be on the same. But I know I'm getting long-winded, so I'm gonna leave it right there.
That sounds good to me. Ms. Max, Razor?
Yeah, I don't think I have anything extra to cover. I mean, the Minority Business Alliance is a support system, if you will, for our local minority businesses, and certainly something they should take advantage of to help them, as you mentioned, Q, help them to grow and help to support the greater population of Black-owned, minority-owned businesses here in Charlottesville. I just would recommend that all either reach out, whether it be online or come to this event, right, to learn more about the Alliance and how the Alliance can not only help their business to grow, but again, benefits Charlottesville community overall.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, I got something I got to say.
Oh, shucks. Oh, well, we out of time.
All jokes aside, though, Q, I need you to talk to. There was a time when I came to Charlottesville where you caught me early when I was rough and raw. All I had was Charles and Ty Cooper to really help cultivate me until you brought me into your home and talked to me, and you and I had that conversation. I need you to talk to the old us to let them know that, okay, we was boys hanging out, running, having fun as we develop businesses, as we raise families, that it's still okay to have those connections and support one another in our endeavors, but talk directly to the younger you and I.
The younger you and I. Yo, man, you pretty much said it, man. The younger you and I's just needed to realize how important it is to get plugged in and to find people that can pour into you. And you got to be willing to be poured into. You got to be willing to not know everything. Willing to be vulnerable. And that we're ignorant of certain things. But then the old us got to be, we have to refine the way that we pour. We can't just we can't regurgitate everything to a young money. You know what I mean? You can't just tell them what they need to do. It's a means by which you're able to teach someone. And what I'm learning is the best way to teach someone sometimes is by asking more questions and asking good questions. So I know I've been guilty of it, of bumping into a young money that wants to know, wants to get involved, wants to do this, that, and the other, and I just want to give them everything. Yo, check this out, check. You know what I mean? And that's not quite the way. Or just not respecting their mindset and what they may know and how they look at the world,
right?
And making it a dialogue as opposed to just a instructive.
Keep it transactional.
Yes, well, I wouldn't say transactional, but dialogue, just an exchange of dialogue. So in a way, it would be transactional, but I like to stay away from that word when you're talking about building relationship, because at the end of the day, that's what it is. And building relationships is not transactional. You know what I mean? It's not just I give you this, so you need to give me that. It's like, I care about seeing you get to a certain level. And here's what I went through. You may see it a different way, but only way I can give it to you, here's what I experienced. You dig?
That's good.
Love it. Yep. What a perfect way to end this segment. Man, that's some good game right there. But none other than Mr. Quentin Harrell of the Minority Business Alliance of Charlottesville, talking about the Harlem Nights Gala. And we did put that ticket link in our feed here, and it is going down Friday, September 27th, 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. at the DoubleTree Hotel here in Charlottesville. And when you go to that link too, there's other links if y'all want to learn more about being a member as well. So definitely reach out.
Roll with us, baby. Roll with us. September 27th, we going 7 till they kick us out.
Hey,
so holler at us.
We're gonna shut it down. All right, Q. Till next time, man. Continue success.
All right, thank you. Thank y'all.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that, and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in the city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue, especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that, and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue, especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles.
Miss Max and Razor.
He always got
Thank
that
you, Miss
bull
Max.
with-
But you got a
You know
good
I'm over
woman.
here reading.
She had your back. Did you see that?
Yeah, on her
Good
birthday.
woman right there. That's right. You're making her work on her birthday. Come
Thank
on,
you.
man.
Thank
Supposed to be
you.
ready. No, but thank y'all for staying tuned because we are here to keep bringing Seville to the world and I got it all mixed up, Max. We are here to keep taking Seville to the world and bringing the world to Seville.
There we go.
So, something like that. But as promised, though, we are joined right now by a good friend, and he brought a guest along with them as well. We are joined by members of the People's Coalition. A facilitator is our brother Harold Foley. And
how you doing?
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon to you. And he also brought another member of the People's Coalition. Miss Cherry is with him today.
Good evening.
good to see you. Thank you for being a first time guest. Hopefully, it's not the last time. You are now officially family, Miss Cherry. I want you to know that.
This is the first time on the radio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Razor, you hear that? Be good. Be good.
Hey, look, I'm over here grinning because she made me feel warm. She gave me like that revival welcome. Welcome to all y'all, one and all. I love it, Miss Cherry. I love it.
So Brother Harold, as always, you wear many hats, but you're always about that good activism when it comes to criminal justice reform. So again, today we're here mainly to talk about the People's Coalition, but it feeds into a lot of work that you've talked about before when you've been on here. Especially when it comes to prisoner rights and getting rights restored and all that and just advocating for ex-felons and whatnot, or current felons as well. So People's Coalition, though, maybe new to some. So go ahead and let folks know the meaning and the work behind the People's Coalition.
So
go ahead and lean in for us.
The People's Coalition was created in 2018. It was created right after the Summer of Hate. That's when I started there as an organizer. And what I did, I looked around and see who was really upset about the officers to stand around watching people get their heads bust. And so what stemmed from that was in 2018, there was a resolution passed for the city to start a police oversight board. Which was great because, I started LAJC Legal Aid, and I was like, wow, this is a great opportunity because I would have everything I need. I would have, an attorney to help me figure out what to do and what to say and talk in terms of the law. And so in 2018 to 2019, the People's Coalition was created. And it was a coalition of different folks and individuals who came together to say, hey, let's come together and figure out how to dismantle the criminal justice system where no money is really going to it, but it's going to outside to help people who have mental health or substance abuse. And so in 2019, we helped the oversight board to push for a oversight here in Charlottesville. And in 2019, October, I remember it's October 19, things didn't go as well as we thought. And city council told the folks in the People's Coalition, this is a dealing rule state. You had to go to the state to get this change. We went to the state, March 2020, the pandemic happened. But what was so amazing for me to see, because the people who are in the People's Coalition have the lived experience or have been, incarcerated or have seen police brutalize their families. They stayed and they went to the General Assembly and they testified and they gave testimony about why it's important. So real quick, that's a little quick about the People's Coalition, but I want to talk, pass the mic to Sherry Henley, who is part of the People's Coalition, and she can tell you the group that she has and how it is functioning.
Ms. Henley?
Yes, my organization is called Lending Hands. I created Lending Hands. Am I close enough? I created Lending Hands. As he said, I had lived experience with the criminal justice system. And the main thing I just wanted to do was better people's lives, help people re-enter back into society. So I created Lending Hands, doing a lot of re-entry work from the beginning, just kind of connecting them to resources. It was my main thing because I did a lot of it incarcerated as well. So I brought it out on the outside. Right. And, I did a lot of things like transporting people to work release at the jail. Then I created an office at on Concord Avenue. I have 703 with Virginia Organizers Office building. And also I have a house in Fluvanna now where people can come and live, women can come and live. Yeah. I got out and I started writing my proposal kind of inside of prison. I knew what I wanted to do kind of, but God had, I'm one of them kind of ones you got to kind of kick in the butt a little bit to get it done. So I guess he said that's what he had to do. But anyway, so that's what I do. And now I collaborate with other organizations like, what Harold is doing and People Coalition, the Jail Committee, we're kind of the same. And many other groups like you'll hear more about like the Spongebob Council and all those.
Spongebob Council.
So anywhere criminal justice reform is happening in Charlottesville, I'm there.
That is awesome. Congrats to y'all. Like, I gotta say kudos to that.
Yeah,
because
that's a big deal.
I mean, like this, like the story is so inspirational. And Harold, like you take a moment as well for, I know most of Charlottesville, we have listeners outside of Charlottesville as well, or people that may be new to Charlottesville. Like just like she gave a little bit of her background, give a little bit of yours. Because one thing we run into a lot of times people see faces and people trying to do the work, but they don't always know that, hey, I've been through what you're going through, and that's why I'm so passionate about this. So sort of just share some of your inspiration and passion on why you've been doing this for so many years.
So and I got caught up in the war on drugs. I was a casualty of that, right? So in the early 90s, I was incarcerated and I was in the feds, the federal prison. And the federal prison was kind of strange for me because I live in Charlottesville, and you see a lot of white folks. And when I got locked up, I remember I went through Atlanta USP, and it got dark because they got an 80-foot wall, and they put me in the bullpen. And I looked around in the bullpen, and I see nothing but white and brown people. I mean, black and brown people. Sorry. And at that moment, I said, "Wait a minute, why am I in here?" And that was the jumping start for me to start figuring out how to come out and do things differently. And so what I did was I learned my organizing skills from a neighborhood association, FAR, the Public Housing Association of Residents. That's when my first organizing happened. And then after that, I landed a job with Virginia Organizing, where that's where all my criminal justice organizing started, where I was doing restoration of rights. I met with the governor to say, hey, we need to change this this application, because for folks who in the early days, we had to do a 13-page application to get our rights back. And so right now you can just go online and put your social security number and see if you get your rights back. And so what I try to do is dismantle the criminal justice for thousands, because I know I have people who are locked up, who are incarcerated, you know, and this criminal justice system that we are in was built off of racially motivated in things in which they did, right? You know, the black laws, when, you know, the police was created because of slavery and, you know, the slaves was running away. So this whole system we are in is definitely still part of the criminal, part of the racial justice system that the, you know, the Klan and the other folks, white supremacy, didn't want us a part of. And people still sitting in the system and believe that they're doing some work. But anytime you have a certain way of doing a meeting, that is you're in the white supremacy work that is still going on. But what I want to do is, like I said, dismantle the criminal justice system. I believe that people can't get well in the cell. You know, we so often want to lock people up, but once you get people locked up, it's like you encage them. And so, you know, when they come out, they're going to feel encaged. But if we already have an opportunity to have them out, then they have an opportunity to thrive. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes, you know, the term, you can take someone to the water and they don't drink, but give them the opportunity to try to drink. That's what we're trying to do. And so with that said, one of the things we're working on now with the People's Coalition is we're trying to stop this. You know, this was the question I asked everybody when I knocked on the door.
In communities.
Okay. If you had $73 million, what would you do with that $73 million in Charlottesville?
Okay.
Right? And the things we get from people are drug treatment, after school programs, teachers, housing, right? Then I tell them no, they want to put $73 million in a jail. And people are like really surprised about that. One of the things that is so surprising to us as the ones who's doing the door knocking, the People's Coalition, we've been in spite in the Almar Charlottesville Regional Jail, and City Council said they did their due diligence and they had community outreach, and the community want this. I'd say we knocked on about 200 doors, about 50, 60 people answer, right? Nobody knows this is happening over there at the jail. And so,
Harold, let me ask you, how does this funding that I guess has already been approved to give to the local jail not provide the resources that sounds like you may have identified those who were incarcerated, whether jail or prison, need to actually be rehabilitated or to have access to what they need?
So just the thing, I think it's not one time 73 million. It's, for instance, Albemarle County has to pay about $2 million for 27 years. Charlottesville 1.5 million for 27 years. And Nelson County about 500,000-600,000, right? That money can go into the coffers somewhere else, right? What we understand is the conditions over there is bad, right? We know
of the building,
one building, though. There's one building that was built in 1974, and then there was a new section built in 2000, that they don't even use, right? And so what we're trying to say is,
which can house how many people?
Yeah. Oh, that pod can house 80 some people, right? And so what we saying is like, you got this new part that you don't even use for whatever reason you say, right? But you want to put this big Taj Mahal of a jail over it on Avon Street, right? Because you want to say, well, we want it to be a better condition. So, you know, we talk about the 3 C's. There's this thing called the 3 C's. When people are talking about building jails, compassion, contemporary, and capacity, right? And that they pull on your heartstrings. But really, what people should understand is, I don't care how many mental health rooms they put in a jail, you can't get well in the cell, right?
Still in the cage.
And what we want to do is we want to invest in our community. We want to invest into our village. Right? You know, one of the things that we understand is you know, if somebody say $1.5 million is nothing, they tell them a lie. $1.5 million can hire 16 teachers over at the school, right?
Do a lot.
Right. Right now, the school system is having a deficit of $2 million, right? But then you hear in the news that, oh, wow, the parking garage went from $300,000 to $1.8 million. So where are we going to get all this money, right? And furthermore, I'm going to let people know that money that they're going to put in jail is your money. It's the taxpayer money. It's not nobody else's money but your money. And, you know, what we want to do is definitely think about mental health, right? We want to think about how we can help people who are unhoused, right? 1.5 million, what can they do for the unhoused, right? You know, so I want Cherry to talk a little bit more about
to prevent these people from even having an encounter with the criminal justice system.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, and I'm just making an assumption. My assumption is too, is like, are we building this jail for the unhoused? Right.
So but before we go further though, that's county, like that's in the county. So what is the percentage of responsibility that the city has? Because that jail is technically on county property.
Yeah, no, the jail, the county got almost $2 million for 27 years.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it break down in like,
and you don't have no exact. I'm just curious on is this a big problem for city proper as far as budget wise, or is it more of an issue we should be taking up with the county as far as budget?
I'll be honest.
The city got to put so much amount. How much is it? 2 point something?
1.5 million.
1.5
Okay.
Okay. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. How much city has?
I'll be honest with you. Sometimes the city is a better place to do organizing because the county doesn't really listen. The county sometimes have this idea that they don't have homelessness or a housing problem, right? I mean, and it's evidence of how much money they put into for a whole affordable housing, right? And so sometimes we feel like the city can be the ones to make that change because it's progressive, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes they're progressive, right? But, you know, I think what we really want to, you know, have people think about is like, you know, if you have an opportunity to really engage in making people's lives better on the outside is a better thing to do.
Yeah.
Right. But like I said before, there is the one part of the building that is like should not be right.
Need to be renovated.
And so this is the problem that we have. They came to us, the community, and we forced them to say, how can we get a smaller option? So they came with 3 options, and did community outreach with 3 options, and so we got these 3 options, and you know it can be we can have the lower option can be 25 million versus you know the higher option. We get to city council, and they lied to us. There was only one option, and that's $73 million option. Option 3,
which is
the Taj Mahal with part 2, also add another floor if they need it. So it's really a big expansion. They're not saying it's an expansion, but it's an expansion of that jail that we are trying to like say, wait a minute, hold up. Since the beginning of the pandemic, the population of the jail has been dropping, right? You know, at one time, the capacity of that jail was 3 something. At one time, they had over 630 something people in that jail. But that is gone.
And did all 3 of those localities that you mentioned, City, Albemarle County, Nelson County, have to agree to this expansion?
Yes.
All have to agree? Okay.
So all of them have to agree. You know, they have the Albemarle Charlottesville Regional Jail Authority, who is where is the whole thing is happening, you know. So in 2019, they did a study about the HVAC system. The HVAC system was really messed up. And in the old part, they got a cooler system. And so they did an estimate of $1.9 million just for the HVAC system to make sure that things are working out well. They scrapped that and say, you know what? Let's try to get this as much money into this jail to make it look contemporary.
And I don't think they're doing very much different I don't think they're doing very much different, and I could be wrong, for people inside, you know, like programs or, you know, it's just mainly a lot of staffing improvement maybe, which they're going to do, you know. And I guess being a formerly incarcerated person, there are some people who do change, who do want to better their lives. You know what I mean? And also, we had what we call the thing I talk about a lot of times is the DMC study, where it showed where Black men, of course, were being overly sentenced. You know, they spend longer times in jails than their white counterparts, and also, so there are options that we could do with the money, such as, like I said, we have no substance abuse treatment. You know, a lot of people are from substance abuse, trauma and things like that. You know, they're not doing anything to help people with housing, you know, and even, you know, I guess today, and I got a lot going on today because I got, you know, I have a death in the family, and, you know, people in the hospital, and I'm getting older. The last thing I think about these days is harming people. You know, that puts up in my stomach. You know, how do you, you know, my focus today is how can we do more for people? And I know a lot of people say, well, you know, a lot of people talk about, well, they broke the law, they did this, they did that. But, you know, sometimes you could be going through a traumatic episode, you know, and it can do, you know, bring about certain things. But also, so that's the kind of work we want to do. And the school was at city council asking for monies, asking for monies, and city council refused them. They didn't want to do nothing on it front end to help people at all.
So Harold, when you all came in, you gave us a handout that kind of encapsulates what you're describing here. It's called the Prison Policy Initiative. These 3 C's of jail construction arguments are capacity argument for a bigger jail that is required to house all of the incarcerated, contemporary argument, which is new construction is needed to update an outdated jail, and then the compassionate argument, which is new construction is necessary to treat incarcerated people. But the counter to that, according to this policy, is to rather than fund jail construction, that we reduce pretrial detention, focus on community-based care, and reduce total jail capacity.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think too, you look at you know, the bulk of people who's incarcerated or in jail over at ACRJ, Mount Charleston Regional Jail. And most of them have misdemeanors, right? Why are we locking people up with misdemeanors, right? Because we like to criminalize the poor, right? You know, we put the burden on poor people when it comes to criminal justice. And so why are we putting folks who have misdemeanors in prison, in jails? Why can't we help them figure out how to move through their life?
Yes, indeed. Yes, and ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by none other than Harold Foley and Miss Cherry Henley with the People's Coalition doing so much great work in the world. And Razor, I've been waiting for you to get on this mic, man. Because check it out though, Razor. Let me alley-oop something to you right about now. Yeah. Because all that Harold's talking, we all know that being preemptive, being proactive is the way to go. Like, but we also know that the money's in the medicine. And I think we all here aren't that naive to not know that the criminal justice system is an economic revenue stream as well. We know this. So Razor.
Yes, sir.
I don't know what you had on your mind, but that's why I wanted you to come in at is that the system is what? The system is working like it's not supposed broken. To. The system ain't broken.
Yeah. Now, I also want y'all to think about this. Harold, while y'all are advocating for people in this system, right? I think, and this is just Razor's opinion, that the powers that be are so diabolical that they're going to fill these jails with the homeless people because they've been slowing up on, like, you go over to places like Washington Park and it might be some of our friends and family members, but the open drug market, they don't even bother. And the chief even said so when he was online, like they don't focus on those things as much, right? We know that housing is an issue. We know that the homelessness is an issue. Charlottesville tends not to like things that make them look bad in the world, right? And because we've taken down statues and things of that nature, right? And a large part of the people that were advocates for taking down the statues are also advocate for the people in these places that's living, the homeless, right? I'm fearful that the jail is going to get filled up with people that can't defend themselves. The public defenders are already overloaded, so people aren't going to get advocates. They're going to get representation, which entitles you to get more time, you know what I'm saying, with nothing to do about it. So do we have a backup plan in place for when it starts to happen to people that really can't defend themselves? Because I help with like the soup kitchens and dropping off food and stuff, right? And a large part of the people that's here now aren't from here. That's right. The homeless people. So now you have somebody who pretty much can't even reach back to get help from where they come from. And when they go to the court system here in Charlottesville, do we have anything set in place with them?
Well, so no, we don't. I think the other side of the criminal justice system is figuring out how to get people in a safe place, right? And so one of the things that, and not just a plug for legal aid, one of the things we are looking for is people who are, who have fines and fees, but also have a representation from a court-appointed lawyer or someone who represented them that wasn't paid. Because one of the things we're working on is trying to get lawyer at first appearance, because that's what happens. Most people who have money have a lawyer at first appearance, where that's the most important place there when you have an attorney or need an attorney, because that's when all the legalities come running at you and you don't know what's going on, right? Right. And so most times people open their mouth, right? So anytime you open your mouth when the attorney is not there, whatever you said can be used against you. That's right. And so what we're looking for though is we don't have anything in play now, but what we understand though at legal aid, in order to do things, sometimes you have to take drastic measures, right? And so we're looking for clients to do some research to see how we can get attorney at first appearance. So anybody who hear me or know anybody who was locked up and had a court-appointed lawyer or got some fines and fees, reach out to me. That's right. And I'm here to guide. I'm like a conduit, trying to figure out how to get people where they need to be. So reach out to me, because I breathe and live dismantling the criminal justice system. Yeah. And so we definitely that has been the case for a long time.
And join the People Coalition.
Yeah, join the People's Coalition. Yeah, we look for people.
How do they reach you? The People's Coalition to join.
You can call me on my phone. My phone number it's been out there because I've been doing restoration rights throughout the state. So my number is 434-009-0791. And I do this thing called one-on-one to see if you would like to do the work that we do. Because sometimes you bring people in and they're like, oh, this is not for me. So, yeah, you had a question.
Yeah, I do. So in terms of having legal representation available at first appearance, is there a policy that is preventing that from happening right now?
No, it's no policy. It's nothing.
So you just need a procedure in place that...
Right. It had to be through the state.
Okay.
So the state has to say we want this to happen, but also Rizzo right. It's some money got to be put in there some kind of way, because anything that's anything the state legislators do, if they don't fund it, it's not going to happen. Right. And so we're trying to push the state legislators to understand that some people can't afford a lawyer at the first appearance. 95% people can't do it. Right. If you're black, you can't. If you're brown, you can't. You know what I mean? Well, I don't even want to sugarcoat it, right? And so, how do we get people who need this representation at the beginning? We got to change legislation.
So we have been doing a lot of forums though on people who have been impacted by the criminal justice system to just give an insight on not having an attorney at first appearance. And a lot of times, I guess they just give simple answers like. They didn't know what to do. You first go to court, you don't know what's going on or what to expect. You know what I mean? So that's another reason a lot of people are over at the jail. They call it free trial because you don't have an attorney to fight for you during that time. That's right. So a lot of people are held either because, like you said, they don't have an attorney or they can't get bond or they don't know what they don't know what to ask for generally.
So let me re-say this too. I'm sorry. There is a attorney who is working on counsel fees, and the number to call is 804-521-7306.
And this is for who? An attorney doing what?
So this is an attorney who's doing the research. And this is for people who got billed for public representation.
Yeah, gotcha. All right, so Harold, we are up against the time, but thank y'all as always. But make sure that people know your upcoming events and where to see y'all.
Well, I got you, brother. I got one more event. I got one more event, and this is really good. We got this thing called the Expungement Clinic, and we help people who need their records expunged. And so there's a new law that's coming up in 2025, and I got some paperwork for y'all to see it. But as it stands now, this law that we are in was created in 1974. So the only thing that can be expunged on your record is a dismissal or a non-process charge. But it still costs you money. It gives you trauma because you got to go to the police department and get your fingerprint. And so what we're doing is doing a one stop where if you sign up and you got these charges, a lawyer will be there. You don't have to pay nothing. You get your fingerprinted. We submit it to court. We got the common attorney there to sign off. So if people looking to get some records expunged, the expungement clinic going to be happening October the 31st. It's Halloween. Just Halloween. So come there, get your things straight, and whatever. But we also be going to have
about 6, 7 o'clock. What time?
No, it's going to start from 10.
Oh, in the morning.
So, 10 to 4. Right. And if you can, we don't have the QR code yet, but what we need you to do is register beforehand. Right. But Miss Cherry and I are going to do a info session maybe 2 weeks before that, so we can get people signed up. And the info session is going to talk about the new law in 2025,
which will get a few more things expunged when people record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely share that with us, the registration link.
I will
make sure that we share it with the folks.
Okay.
Yes, indeed. With Miss Cherry, Mr. Harold, thank y'all. As always, please keep up the great work. Yes, indeed. Thank you. Because this, it's something generationally that we got to keep up. We can't give up the fight, right? Can't give up the fight.
Yeah.
So yes, indeed. So and Harold, I know you said for the People's Coalition to call you directly. So give me the number one more time.
Yeah. If you want to be part of the People's Coalition, there's 2 ways to reach me. You can reach me by phone. My number is 434-409-0791, or you can just reach me by email, harold@justice4all.org.
All. Yeah, I didn't know if you caught that.
But I'm gonna thank y'all. First of all, I'm gonna say thank y'all so much. Like I said when I first got here, y'all are the ones who keeping the finger nail on the Black experience in Charlottesville, and I love that. And I want to say continue doing what you do, because if you weren't here, a lot of people wouldn't understand what's going on in Charlottesville that are Black and brown issues.
Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you for all that you do, to both of you. Thank you for sharing your time with us on this Sunday. Let us know how we can support. We look forward to having you back. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And y'all are inspirations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, proud of all the work you do.
If I was white, I'd be red right now.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show, Sir Charles.
Miss Max.
Razor.
You see how I slowed it down a little bit for you, Razor? Give you a little time.
I know how you do.
Yeah, but thank y'all for joining us. Stay in tune, family, because we are at the bottom of another show. But don't go nowhere yet, because we still have some great information that you guys to know about. And we are joined once again by our homegirl, frequent guest, always doing good activism in the community, in the world. Just love watching her. You know, I'm gonna date myself right now. Love watching her grow up. How about that? That's right. We go way back, but none other than Miss Zayana Bryant.
Right.
Zay, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Thank you. And happy Commander Sunday to all who celebrate the finer things in life.
Hey, I guess
Welcome
shots fired right here. Hey, so Zay, just wanted to have you in here today so you can let the folks know what you've been up to. Some folks I'm sure have seen some of the great work that you've been doing with the teens and youth over the summer. And now going into as the school year start, sort of let folks know what's atop the agenda, so we can know how we can support further.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. There's a lot of things that I've been kind of working on this summer. One being just connecting with other young people in the community. I know that there's an ongoing initiative that I've been doing for a few years, actually since 2020, to support first gen Black students who are heading off to college for the first time. And a first generation student would be someone who is attending college and is the first in their family to do so. So we know that there are so many kind of unspoken rules and things that you need to learn about college before you get there, and just like even what to wear. If there's a convocation, do you wear a white dress? Like all of those things that literally I was learning throughout my process of transitioning into school at UVA. So I know that there are so many things that you just may not know, and it may not even cross your mind. And so my goal is to try to help fill some of those gaps. And you know, we do crowdfunding and we collect resources, and then I go out and do all of the shopping at local stores, and you know, assemble these kind of care packages and baskets for the students who need dorm essentials or required text for their courses and give it to them as they go off, but also with a commitment to do further mentoring. So check-ins and dinners or lunches, meetups, you know, to be able to make sure that they're doing well throughout the entire semester. And if they're out of town or if they're far, like maybe we go visit them, or when they come to Charlottesville, we connect. And then in addition to that, work for first gen students, just connecting with some of my favorite students at Lugo McGinnis Academy. So for those who are not familiar, Lugo McGinnis is people would say alternative school, but not quite. I would say it's, you know, an alternate education opportunity for students who are in Charlottesville City Schools and who went to CHS or go to CHS. And I have learned that, you know, many of us have stigmatized what alternative school can actually look like. But in the past year, I've had the opportunity to go over there on some, you know, chill opportunities during lunch or when they have like actual events. And I've gotten to grow closer with some of those students. And I feel like there's like a real opportunity for the community to meet them halfway. And I know they have like community time on Fridays. So that's been cool.
And shouts out to Dr. Trotter and staff too. Doing great work.
They're doing really good work. And the counselor over there, Ms. Phelps, she's awesome. And I can literally text her about anything and she's really quick to respond. So that's helpful. Mrs. Washington, who's over there, who's doing great work too, to connect with the students. So I've been able to connect with some of those students over the summer and make sure that they're staying, you know, out of trouble, but also like getting them into wellness activities. I took a few students to the mountains, like Skyline Drive a couple of times, and they were like, wow, we've never been up here. And I'm like, it's not that far from, you know, town, but like if your parents don't have a car or whatever, you may not be able to get there. So it's like those little things that we take for granted. I was able to, you know, experience with them this summer for the first time. And so just like reminding them that like good conversation is good, you know, having deep, you know, thoughtful conversations about literally anything, but also just getting out into nature is a way to clear your mind. And I think we talk about how we prevent violence and some of the uptick in like violence that we've seen in our community, and, you know, infusing wellness activities or focusing on ways to just decompress is a way that we can help prevent some of that violence. And then lastly, trying to support some of the teen mothers or teen parents. I want to say parents because I want to be inclusive, because teen fathers need help too.
That's right.
And so at Lugo last year, I came across a few teen moms who were students at Lugo McGinnis, and they needed milk or whatever. And it was as simple as me just like going to the store, picking it up, bringing it to the school. And they were so grateful. And I realized it's a reoccurring need within our community across like just the community, not just high school students, you know, recent high school graduates or students who are at other local high schools. So I've been doing like shopping, mutual aid collections for some of those moms. But then I was like, we need a resource closet. So I'm working with the counselor at Lugo and hopefully at CHS to be able to just have like a resource closet where there's like formula, Pampers, wipes, things like that, that are always a need, and that they don't have to like explain a full story. Like it's just like, I just need this. It's low barriers. So that they have access to what they need, because we know that that can create a barrier for them not to go to school. And so my goal is like, okay, if this is what's standing in between you getting good grades or graduating on time, let's just get it done. Like we don't have to, you know, have a whole big thing for it. So that's kind of been what my work has been looking like. It's just always connecting resources to those who need them.
Yeah, you bring a lot of great questions to mind. You know, first, thank you for doing this. And I'm curious, you know, you being someone that's from the city of Charlottesville, and you understand, you've navigated all the moving pieces of going from, you know, being a teen and going to college and into your career and whatnot. What have you found has been sort of the biggest like requests of students? You know, because I think us as parents, us as community members, volunteers, whatever, like we have our idea sometime, but maybe that may just be like within the circles that we work with. But I'm curious on, you know, if it was that one thing that you feel like is a resounding request, how can we be most helpful?
Wow, I think there are so many, but I think the biggest thing is like having someone to help them navigate the process, right? There are so many little things like the FAFSA, getting a computer that's reliable and things like that. But if there are people who are like, if the student is interested in the field that I'm currently in or something that I studied, if they want to connect with a student, I feel like that's so big, especially the alums who are still active at their universities, their alma maters, and who donate or who have connections still on those campuses. It's really helpful because it's like, okay, we can give them all their dorm essentials. We can get them the computers, but once they get there, we need to know that they're like in good hands. So someone who is an alum or who has worked at a university who can help facilitate that transition on like a connection type level is really helpful. And so, I mean, there's always the request for, if you have resources, if you have computers that are in good condition and you want to give them to a student, that's always helpful. If you want to donate Tide Pods or whatever, detergent, whatever, to a student, that's helpful. But also, if you want to take a little bit of your time and maybe talk to a student a couple of times as they're transitioning, I think that would be helpful. I think that parents do want to support, because I know we often hear like, oh, the parents need to do more, the parents need to step up. But like, again, if they're first in their family to attend, how would their parents be, you know, an expert on navigating that process? So I think having someone who can also talk to the parents and kind of be that in between like them and their university faculty or their campus, and then the parent and the student, like someone to just keep it all together would be super helpful. And I know I had the students who received help this time fill out a survey, and multiple of them said we would be interested in continued mentorship. So I think like having some mentoring opportunities would be really helpful. Women and men, or people who are non-binary, just community members in general, to be inclusive, like would, if you want to do something like that, definitely reach out, and I can provide an email address too for that. But I know that that's a big need. And so like I said, you know, money is good, right? It helps us get the items that we need, but time and just check-ins go a long way. We had a student who, my mentor, Dr. Brackett, she's now out in Tacoma, Washington, and teaching at the University of Puget Sound. She's from Charlottesville, and she actually started a scholarship in her mother's honor at Monticello High School. But we connected with a student who was going all the way to California, and within 24 hours, we got her a ticket for the plane because she didn't have a way to get there, but she was accepted, tuition was figured out. It was just like, how's she going to get there and how's she going to get the things that she needs for her dorm? And so we were able to do that within 24 hours, you know, going on social media crowdfunding, but also I was able to spend some time with her and like talk with her to make sure she was feeling okay about it. I mean, that's a big step, like leaving a small town like Charlottesville, getting on a plane and like not looking back and being like, I'm about to start a whole new journey on the other coast. Like that's huge. So someone like her would need someone to check in and say like, are you good? Is there something that you do need? Like, I know you have a dining hall plan and everything like that, but like, how's your heart? Like, how are you mentally? So I think that that's a huge piece that first-gen students do need, because I know my first year, if I didn't have mentors like Dr. Donna, she's my soror now, but when I first met her, we were not sorors, and she literally put her hand on me and was like, I got you. And she didn't lie, because I could hit her up at any time and it was like, okay, she will respond. Or Mimi Arbite, you know, a community member from Charlottesville, an activist who was always there. So it's like, for those students who are moving outside of home, it's hard. And Charlottesville is such a small town. Can you imagine like moving outside of that space? It's like, it's scary. So I think having those people who can just be reachable at any time would be a huge help.
Yeah. You know, Zod, what I hear you saying, much more than like the practical matters of what you are helping people with, is that you're helping our youth navigate life, right? They may not necessarily have the leadership that they need or the example that they need in the home or in their neighborhood. And, you know, they have so many questions. They've never done it before. So who do I go to? And then for those who look like they may be taking the right steps and making the right decisions, that may be so far away, and not in proximity, but just so far away. Like, I don't, it's kind of like, it may be like an anomaly as to how are you doing this? How did you get it right? You know, and make things line up for yourself. And I think that older folks aren't always good at teaching our youth how to navigate life, especially at this day and age, right? That may have worked 30 years ago or 50 years ago, but things are different now. And sometimes we can be hard-headed and expect our kids or the younger generations to kind of view and do things the same way we do. And so I applaud you for that. And we all need to recognize that our kids need much more guidance and leadership than we may think that they need. I remember making some mistakes straight out of high school and having a conversation with my mom who said, I thought you knew better because I've never done this before. I don't know what, you know, somebody's got to teach me, right? I mean, age doesn't necessarily mean you should know better. And so what you're doing for these kids is invaluable. And thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Yes, indeed.
All right, here come the villain. Now, this is, I have to ask it, right? Because Charles and Max both summed it up well. And I need you to help me understand, because I got a lot of younger children, right? How do you not vilify a child's decisions, but at the same time hold them accountable for the dumb S that they do. You know, so I mean, I'm speaking for the one that Max talking about, the old school generation that don't understand that I'm tired of telling you 15 times, and I'm that. And I don't see myself changing no time soon. So I am up for help for people to show me. But there is a problem because society, especially white society, has told Black America how to manage their kids. Like what we can do, what we can't say, how we got to say it, what we, you know, all these type of things. But they protect them until they turn 17, 18, and then they want to lock them up. So I'm from the generation, I'm going to be on you because one, I don't want to be cleaning up all your mistakes all the time. But two, I'm not going to be here forever. And I need to know that you know how to think outside of being told what to do and be a follower every step of your life. So that medium for me is difficult, you know, and it comes out abrasive. It comes out rough. It comes out fussing. It comes out not emotionally attacked. Max and Charles both have worked with me on that. You know, I'm not even going to hide that. But at the same time, I'm from the prison system that Harold was talking about. I was 18 years old. They tried to charge me with 100 years. You know, why would I want that for my children or anybody that I care about? So there's a difference between getting pulled over and getting a misdemeanor and getting your license taken and a police officer whipping you because when the war on drugs was on, they looked at you no different than a slave. It was just modern day. So I don't want that for my kids. So when I see young ladies like yourself doing great work, I'm cheering for you. But at the same time, I wouldn't have a problem with telling you if I saw you doing something where you was out of pocket. Where's that medium at?
Well, that was a loaded question. And it had many, many pieces and layers. I'll say this. I'm not a parent, so I can't really give much insight to the parenting process. But what I can say as someone who does volunteer with young people, I think it's important to put yourself in the shoes of the young person, right? So if someone's like yapping at you and nagging you and just like coming at you, obviously you're going to shut down. And so emotionally, we know that if there's not an open door policy and there's not like an actual conversation when someone's shouting at you, there's not a conversation. And so if that's the case, like I would shut down too, even at my age of 23. Like, I mean, so I think it's important to think about that. Additionally, I would say that it's hard to imagine what's possible if you've never been there. So if you are raised around, you know, a family environment where, you know, the carceral system has been such a heavy part of your family life and has taken over that, it's hard to imagine what a family life outside of that looks like. And so if you haven't been outside of the boundaries of Charlottesville, Albemarle County, and you don't know that there's a whole big wide world out there, it's easy to make decisions that may cost you your future and that could prohibit you from experiencing the big wide world out there. So I think about it in that lens. And so that's why I'm like, okay, well, how do we get you signed up for new opportunities? How do we get you enrolled in new programs? Or how do we establish a rapport on a foundational level where I have a friend, I'm not going to say his name on air, but he's a young student, and he texts me the other day and he's like, Zai, what you doing? I'm like, nothing, but I hope you're at school. And he's like, I am. And then he sends me proof that he's at school. And then 10 minutes later, he sends me that he got 100 on his quiz. Nice. And then the next day, another 100 on his quiz. And it's just like, okay, so there's that rapport there. So then, because if there's no rapport, I can't check you. I can't say you need to do blah, blah, blah if I don't really know you for real. So I think that that's the piece of like connecting with the youth is first before we can correct anyone. And so Razor, if you were walking down the street, like if we're going to be honest, and you just came at me and you were just like, I would be like, okay, like he's an elder, so I'm going to just let him do his thing. But then when he's done, I'm going to just let it go out the other ear because it's like, you don't know me, sir. Like, and so it's like, I think we're not at that place in our community anymore where it's like, we say we believe in a village, but we don't really have that like community vibe anymore. So it's not where we can just walk up to people and start checking them or holding them accountable. Accountability requires community first. And so I think, to answer your question, if we were to start on the foundational level of trying to connect with people and to get to know how they are, who they are, what their life experiences are, we'd have a better response to some of their decisions, and we could call them in without calling them out.
I'm also like, I agree 100% with you, but I'm also from that generation. If I'm trying to keep you from it, don't come to me after you done messed up. You know, so then our community is messed up again. Like you said, I hear you, but I can't chase no child. Like, I can't, me personally, I would rather find somebody that can reach them, and I be there in other support ways. You know, I know my limitations, so I'm not going to force nothing, but that I know is wrong, in the hopes of making sure that the child feels like they're heard or they got a voice or whatever. Because while the Bible says they might be led by a child, I ain't going off cliff for nobody.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, I was, but if you still in that lane, go ahead.
So the only thing that I was going to ask is whether or not kind of your approach to what you described, how children or youth today have to be engaged in order to kind of to reap the benefits that we all desire for them, for our community world. Do we need to implement those type of things into our school system? Will it work in that scenario as well, or is there a different approach?
Yeah. And so there's like restorative justice practices. I know that Charlottesville High School, I think, had like a conference or like a day-long training for people who were parents, community members, community partners, to come in and understand about what that actually means. But I mean, if we're talking about like reparative processes, having mediations with students and teachers, but not in the way that we've traditionally done it, where it's like we sit across the table and we talk about our problems, because that doesn't really do much. It is a facilitated process that actually, you know, infuses wellness and like emotional like maturity and awareness. All of those things are so important. And I think that that's one way that we can do that. I think additionally, I love that Charlottesville High School or Charlottesville City Schools has the student rep on the school board. So when I was in high school, when I was a senior, I was a student rep. And so bringing that student voice into some of the policy aspects of how we make changes in the school division is important too. We have student council, right? We have like student elected bodies that are supposed to be in conversation with our administration, as long as the administration is actually listening and open to those conversations. But I think even within the schools or on the community level, there needs to be more trust too. Like, we have to like, I got to a place where some of these Lugo students at first were like, who is this girl? Oh, this is Zanaya and Zania's sister. So we'll kind of talk to her a little bit, but like, she doesn't understand us. She goes to UVA. She's not. And it's like, but unfortunately, I mean, I have some of the same experiences that they may have, but we don't know it. We judge a book by its cover, right? So like, what if we walked into spaces more and we talked about our background, where we're from? Like, what if my first opener was like, instead of listing off all of my accomplishments or my titles, it was like, but I'm from 10th and Page. You know, like, how does that open up the conversation in a different way? And so I think that was one thing for me, but two, I had like between 5 and 7 young men that I was like being in conversation with this summer, taking them on wellness activities, you know, just like engaging with them, kind of mentoring them, right? And they started by saying a lot of crazy things around me. Like, they would use the B word, they would say colorist things, they would say homophobic things. And I'm like, we're not gonna do that. But not just we're not gonna do that. Let's actually talk about why that's problematic. And then over time, they would stop themselves before they started using the B word. And I'm like, y'all know, I don't want to hear it again. And it's like, not I'm trying to be their mom, not I'm trying to give auntie vibes, but it's like, the more we say it and the more it's like said around us and it's entering into like our psychological gates, we start to normalize it internally. So if I say, okay, every time you get in my car, we're not going to vape, we're not going to say the B word, like, it just becomes a cleaner space. It's a cleaner slate for us to just engage and talk and have pure conversation.
Which unfortunately has to be taught.
Right. And it does have to be taught. But I think it was never in a way that was punitive or like as if I was punishing them or I was policing them. And when you don't police youth, I feel like you have a much better space to really have like true and honest engagement. And I see that over at Lugo. Like, it doesn't feel like a police state. There, you know, it's not very restrictive in that way. And I feel like students are in there like expressing their full selves. They're able to dress how they, you know, feel, of course, within guidelines and limits. So it's appropriate for school, but they're able to dress how they want. They're able to play music that they enjoy. But again, if it gets them to show up into the space, like how are we getting young people into the space is the biggest question, because it's like, once you're in there, you can have dope conversations. You can, there's so many possibilities, but getting them into the door is really important. And you only do that if it feels like a safe space. So I think like back to the questions that both of you asked, it's like, how do we do that? And I guess on a community level, it really comes from like building trust, but also relating to each other. And I think a lot of us have experiences that we feel like, oh, I've moved past, I'm in a new phase of my life. But it's like someone could really benefit from you sharing about that past phase of your life and what you went through and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, that's big. Yeah. You know, something that you said a minute ago is like really blew my mind, because you know, a lot of times myself, like like when I think Zion Bryant, I'm like, everybody knows Zion Bryant, you know, their story, right? So then, you know, it blows my mind for a student to then be like, oh, well, like, you know, like that's just their sister. You know what I mean? It's like, but it really brings to mind though about how a lot of times even Black men and Black women like get at odds with each other without even really like understanding where the other is coming from. Or we already talked about like the age difference and how that could juxtapose. We also see in Charlottesville a lot, you have people who may be born here, and then you have people who may be transplants here, right? And so you kind of look at each other differently because you don't think that the other understands you. But I'm thinking that like we definitely have more in common than we have different, and we really need to give each other a chance. You know, if people trying to help, trying to do the work, why not let them?
And it's easier said than done. Let's be clear. Absolutely. It's easier said than done. We all have human nature of just like prejudging people, having misconceptions about things before we walk into situations. And it's like, I feel like the older I get, the more I've even challenged myself on that. It's like, okay, like, yes, you think this thing, but have you ever talked to this person for real? No. If not, then like, maybe just try. Like, don't, you know, have an open mind.
You growing.
Listen, I'm growing a lot. Maybe it's graduate school. I don't know. But yeah, like, I think like just having those moments where you want to actually hear people out and talk to them is one big thing. But I also think that, let's be clear, Charlottesville is very tribalistic. And I feel like you and I have talked about this before on air. And it's just like, people can come from the outside and get so much love, so much praise, so much clout, if you will. But people will not support people that they went to high school with. And I've experienced that firsthand. And I've even been a part of the problem too. I'm like, well, I went to school with them, But it's like, how do we change that? How do we move away from that? And I feel like once we kind of challenge ourselves to do that, and on a community level, we will start to have better conversations, because I don't want to dismiss that. Charlottesville is very welcoming. Black Charlottesville is very welcoming to outsiders, more so than people that they've known their whole lives. And I think that a lot of that has to do with our own personal forgiveness and forgiveness of others. And I don't mean that like you can't feel away if someone did something to you, but I mean more so of like, we went to high school together, and 15 years ago, so-and-so did something to me in B Commons. And so for that reason, I don't want to talk to them anymore. But, and I understand that, like, personal feelings are real. People have feelings. But at the same time, it's like, okay, but you know this person has been working really hard on their project, but you'll support someone who's doing the exact same thing, who's from states away, who just came in, and you'll trust them so quickly without trusting the people that you know from Charlottesville. And people get frustrated and upset about it. And then they're just like, I don't want to do anything.
Let's trade the word trust for value. Because that's what it is.
That's fair. That's fair. They'll value someone from outside before they value someone from Charlottesville. And it is hurtful. Like someone who's grown up here and who does community work, I'm sometimes almost flabbergasted at the ways that people who are not from here, you know, get the funding, they get all of the things. And it's like, but the people who are born and raised here, who are just trying to give back to their community, are fighting for these very crumbs of resources. And that's something that Tanisha Hudson talks about all the time. And I actually agree with her. Like, you know, she's making very valid points. Like she's, you know, worked hard to create like a festival in Charlottesville and to do, you know, great things to highlight local artists and local people who have done things like Damien and his basketball league. And then we see people who are not from here do the exact same thing and get tons of funding, tons of applause. And it creates resentment. And it's just like, I feel like we talk about how we tear ourselves down within our community. Well, that's one way.
Yeah. And in my I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, from my perspective, I'm kind of someone that's sort of in the middle of that dynamic, because I'm from a surrounding county. But so that means when I was growing up, I spent a lot of time in Charlottesville, had made a lot of friends I grew up with. But there's still times where I'm also reminded that but you didn't grow up in Charlottesville, or you know what I mean. So so I can see it both ways. Like I definitely respect where you're coming from. But I think that's a lot of healing that we have to do, and it's about trust. The rapport we talk about with the younger people, like that, those same steps could be done to manage our adult relationships as well.
Yeah, it could be a both and thing. I don't think it has to be like we're closed off to outsiders, but I do think we should, as Max said, like value the people that are here. Give them their flowers when they're doing great things. And join them. Like we could really do so much if we build coalitions. And I know everyone says that, like unity, we can do so much when we work together. But like, what does that actually mean, right? Like if you say that you're working on this project and you know that I have the resources, the assets, whatever to do that, maybe we should talk about working together. And obviously sometimes that requires like conversations, healing, moving past whatever, actually sorting through some of the things that have happened in the past. But I think that like, that's the best way that we can help the youth is by modeling better behavior. And so, I mean, it's like, it's hard as a 23-year-old if the 23-year-olds are the people, or the 24-year-olds are the people who are giving back to the youth and like trying to pour into them. But we still have the people who are older than us showing that toxic behavior. Like, who are we learning from? Like, we don't have all of the answers. We're still middle age. We're not even middle age. We're like middle youth, like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, we still need those wise examples to exist out there and to help us too. So it's like, people are like, oh, Gen Z is doing great work, but Gen Z still needs the other generations to help us as well.
Can I just say, and I'm going to be completely transparent right now. So piggybacking off of the comments that you just made. So I saw the GoFundMe campaigns that were on Facebook, that you put on Facebook for the first year college students, right? I saw what the goals were, and I kind of sat back and waited to see if people would support you as far as raising that money to get these kids to school, just because of the same reasons that we're discussing right now. I will also say I didn't give anything, and I got a ton of kids myself. That's one of the reasons why. But because of the issues that I know exist in the city, same ones we're talking about, I did want to see how that turned out. And fortunately, people stepped up, they gave, and you made it happen.
Well, I will say most of my support comes from outside of Charlottesville. It's always been that way. Since 2020, when I first started crowdfunding, a lot of my support comes from outside of Charlottesville. In fact, there's a scholar that I love so much. I've cited her work throughout my time in undergrad. She literally saw my Instagram post, like on my story, the fundraiser. She dropped $5,000, and that got us way closer to the goal, because the goal was only, I think, $8,000, right? So if one person who's states away gives $5,000, and then other people who may be UVA alums or professors who are not from Charlottesville, who may be white, give large amounts, we reach our goal, right? And so that's not to take away from the other folks who are on, like, Black and brown, who are on the ground, who are from Charlottesville, who are giving smaller amounts. Every dollar is appreciated. Every share is appreciated. But I will say that, like, if I were to tally up the numbers, vast majority of my support comes from outside of Charlottesville. And I think that's why it's so important to me to like be so transparent with like what our process is like. We go shop with the students, we meet with the students, all of these things, because these people are not in Charlottesville. They can't see it with their own eyes. They trust that this work is what we say it is, and that the money is going to what it is supposed to go to. So, some people will say, oh, well, I don't get why certain people post so many things on social media. We need to let the people know that we have receipts for everything, that we do. And I think that's one part, but then it's also like, how do we get people in Charlottesville to feel inclined to give back to those who are in their own community? And I think that's a challenging thing. I mean, the economy is not the best right now, so I don't ever fault anyone who's not able to give funds. But if you could share, I mean, a share goes a long way, because there could be someone who does have the resources that is your friend or sees it and is able to, again, drop that $5,000, drop that $100, whatever, that moves us closer to the goal. So it's all appreciated. But yeah, that's definitely something I've noticed. Or it's like, oh, well, so-and-so's doing this exact same work. Why do I need to give to this fundraiser? And it's like, well, it's okay for other people to do similar work. There's actually enough space. That's right. Yeah. There's enough space at the table for us all. And so I don't think that it has to be a competing type of interest. I actually refer some people to local nonprofits to receive some of that help, rather than me trying to like manage all these different requests that are very different. I try to focus on moms who need housing support or like grocery, food costs and stuff, and they have kids, young people who are, you know, Gen Z, young 20s or whatever, who need help with housing costs and things like that, or, you know, like students who are in K through 12. I try to focus on that and prioritize that. And if you fall outside of that, I'm not going to turn you away, but I will refer you to someone who does more of the work, focus on what you need.
Yeah. And a big part of that too is just learning the game as well. It's like the fact of the matter is, like you said, you could have two similar organizations, right? And one may know the tricks of the trade, so to speak, the other may not. So, you know, so another thing that I think that would help us as well is relaying that knowledge, right? Like even a Ziona Bryant, like there could be another Ziona Bryant growing up right now in Charlottesville. You know what I mean? So, but the fact is that like nobody should hate on your success while maybe the next Ziona Bryant maybe still figuring it out. It's a matter of us like relaying that info to be like, this is how you do it. You know what I mean? Like this is how I got to that point. You know, a lot of times we don't do that. We just look at, you know, like you said, the competition more so than the education.
Right.
You know.
Because that next Ziona Bryant will feel very discouraged if they see how current Ziona Bryant is treated, right? Like if they see current Ziona Bryant receiving all this hate and just like negative energy while she's trying to do positive things, who wants to subject themselves to that?
Right.
So it's like, how do we say we want the young people to do all these great things, and then we have people who are in their 70s hating on the 20-year-olds? And that's happened to me, and I'm like, what in the world? Like I thought you were like my elder and I look up to you, you're doing great work. And then it's like, but you're talking really like cash crap about me around town. And it's like, so what young person would want to deal with that? Who wants to see their like their heroes turn into a villain? I'm looking at you, Razor, because you call yourself the villain.
You don't get a name like Razor for selling Girl Scout.
Oh my Lord.
Hey, so we are up against the time, but one thing I wanted to mention, I don't know if Max had more as well, but Zion, so I'm thinking about the sustainability. Great work that you're doing with teen parents, as well as first gen college students and so on and so forth. Have you branded yourself yet? Because a lot goes through Zai, right? Like we know Zai's passion, but whether it's when this young person turns 18 and then they got to know what public services to get to, or it's when Ziona may move or when Zion's not here anymore. Like, have you considered the sustainability and what that looks like? Like not only for your work, but also for the teens that you're helping.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. That is something important that I'm always trying to focus on, like trying to help them understand that you can do this work too. And I think I have my own kind of political thoughts about how we turn everything into a nonprofit. Because, you know, Charles, we've been in meetings together where we talk about the number of nonprofits that are in this very small area, and it's actually way too many. So I'm not trying to create another nonprofit, but I do think that there could be like youth advocacy trainings in the future, and that's something that I've really been thinking about, how to kind of like operationalize some of this stuff. And so I think that would be really powerful. And so that's why I started under Congregate Seville. They're like our fiscal sponsor. We started Black Girl Builders, and the group of that is Black Girl Builders. It was some teen Black women who I went to high school with who have started the BYAC with me back in 2020. That was a Black Youth Action Committee. We held protests. We did mutual aid Sundays downtown every Sunday. We gave back during Christmas time and during back to school. And then over time, it grew to more people just wanting to partner. So some UVA students, some Charlottesville community members. And so I think that beyond it being like a banner or a name that things fall under, I think it's more so like teaching people how to do it. I don't get offended or upset when I see other people doing mutual aid requests. In fact, I actually donate to it and share it, because it's like, this is a skill that people need to know. Mutual aid is not one person's brand. It's a collective skill. It's a way of doing community work, and it predates Charlottesville. It goes far, far way back. You know, it's a political ideology about collectivism and how we do community. So I think I'm excited when I see other people doing mutual aid. I'm excited when I see people, you know, connecting with other young people. So I think it's more so of like spreading the sauce. If you have it, if you know kind of the recipe, if you know how to do it, then share it with others and make sure that they understand it too. So when people want to grab lunch or just chat about it, I'm always happy to do that, especially if they're a young person, because I feel like young people, it's so hard for us to get meetings with the people we love, right? It's hard to like figure out how, I adore this person who's doing great work, but I don't know how to reach out to them. I don't know how to get a meeting with them. So I try not to ever create that barrier for other young people. But yeah, I definitely think that it's a matter of training other youth as they're in high school, as they're in early college, so that we keep it going, and then they're supposed to pass the skills back. And I saw something interesting. I know that Marquand and I think another student was doing it. I think they were doing like a FAFSA workshop for local students. And I know they went to one of the local high schools. I think Marquand went to AHS, but I was really excited about that because I was like, I'm not sure if it happened already or it's about to happen this fall, but like, that's exciting. Like students who have gone through the process of filling out the FAFSA, teaching others. I think the bottom line is that like, as you climb up or as you get access to more spaces, you should be reaching back for at least one other person.
That's right.
In all spaces and in all ways.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Zaya.
Well, thank you again, Zaya, for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. Always about the good work and what you're doing here for the city and probably across what you're doing, what's felt as far as your work across the country will live on forever. So
thank you so much. I appreciate y'all.
We good, Miss Max? Razor?
Yes, sir.
Everybody straight? Right.